Abyssal Stone. All right, this is an item. I don't know much about Abyssal Stone, so let's learn this together. The devs say that in the regrowth chest thing on his body's been nasty, but 100% breastplate of regrowth, just because it's the exact same item that it was, the shield of regrowth, except now that Bacchus has a heal, it affects him. Otherwise, that item never procced. It's 30 magic power to him and 30% movement speed for like 5 seconds every time he drinks, or 4 seconds every time he drinks from his jug. And it can happen once every 10 seconds. So Bacchus basically just runs around with 30% extra movement speed every time he drinks, because fuck it. Imagine this. Drink from your jug. 30% movement speed for 4 seconds. 30 extra magic power. So you drink jug, you jump in, bounce them up, burp on them. You still have that extra movement speed and magic power. And that's just with one additional item. It is insanity. It is actual insanity what they did to Bacchus. I'm not mad at it, and neither should you be, because it's only positive changes, really. Okay, so with the Abyssal Stone, this year we were especially determined to bring something new and some new and interesting itemization options to the support role. Abyssal Stone is a new item that has a great spread of tank stats. Can I not? Okay. Great spread of tank stats and a brand new way to disrupt your opponents. Enemies debuffed by the Abyssal Stone will experience longer cooldowns, an effect that might look or feel subtle, but is very powerful. Cooldown-related buffs and nerfs tend to have some of the biggest impacts on God's power levels, so this item is certainly one to consider. Alright, so now reading the dev note, I remember this item. This shit's crazy. Alright, so we're getting 40 physical prots and 40 magical prots, and for having both protections, that is a net gain of 80 prots, which is good, right? When you think of like the Absolution only having 60 magical prots, the net gain of protections here is 60. Well, the net gain of protections here is 80, even though they're split between the two. So it's something to consider. 40 and 40, it's an easy way to smooth over the curve of what kind of protections you might need. 300 health. That's not a bad amount of health. I've said it over and over today. 300 health is on the upper end of where you're going to find health bonuses for items. And the passive for Abyssal Stone is something that we all need to know what the fuck is happening. Because it will affect you and your ultimates if you have the debuff. So let's look. Successful ability damage to an enemy god applies a debuff that afflicts them with 20% negative cooldown reduction for 4 seconds. This can only occur once every 6 seconds. So what does that mean? Right? What does that mean? Let's use Bacchus again. Damaging an enemy with an ability, so your burp or your jump, okay, which is something you're doing constantly, applies a debuff that gives them negative 20% CDR, which means at a very baseline, their abilities take 20% longer to come up. So let's say, just for ease of numbers, you have an ability that's on a 100-second cooldown. If you were to use that ability and be debuffed by this fucking item, your ability will have a 120-second cooldown. So just by you unfortunately timing your ability use while you're debuffed by this, you've given yourself an extra 20% cooldown on that ability, which could make or break some characters. Think about hitting a character with this and them using their ult. Like what? Instead of it being down for 120 seconds, it's down for 150? That fucking sucks. That motherfucking sucks. That is going to hurt. That is going to hurt. So if you have people that are ability heavy, ability spammy kind characters, your AMCs, your Chirons, your fucking anybody that is predominantly ability focused, as a support, it could be detrimental to early game this item, which is good prots in both sides, and just put people down before they can get their cooldown reduction online. Because almost inevitably, people are going to purchase some cooldown reduction in some form or fashion, and it's going to negate the overall impact of this item. Or rather, the impact of this item will negate the cooldown reduction that they purchased into. So this is like an anti-Jotuns. This is an anti-Breastplate of Valor. This is an anti-Staff of Mirrodin. Or, no, that's 10%. This is an anti-Fail Knot, right? This is a big reversing direction for people's cooldown. So, you know, if you got a Nuwa up in middle lane who's just flinging spells, all you have to do is kind of keep her debuffed, right? She's debuffed for 4 seconds, but it can only occur once every 6 seconds, which basically means that there's 2-second windows where they could actually fire abilities normally without feeling the negative affects of this, unless I'm misrepresenting how these seconds are interacting. But basically, this is disruptive. This item will force people to get cooldown reduction lest they have incredibly long cooldowns. So something very much to consider as a support. Maybe even something to consider as if you're trying to find a defensive hybrid mid item and you really want to be a motherfucker. This feels like the Icavale of magic items. Fuck, man. That passive is going to be annoying.